Well, welcome everybody to tonight's educational forum. I'm glad you guys could all make it. It'll be my coworker Hannah giving tonight's presentation and myself. Hannah, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Hannah Rarick down here in Medford, one of the CHWs with organ spinal cord injury. I do want to say that I am not a dietitian or a professional. So I will be leading this ed forum, but this is just based off of research I've done and people I've talked to. But I just want to reiterate, I am not a doctor or a professional. I'm just crazy about gut health.
Well, thank you all for attending tonight's virtual session. This is one of our continuations of our educational forums that we do here. This will be recorded so we can share it out with other members that couldn't make it tonight. Please be respectful of everybody's questions or opinions, and I hope you guys find some good information in here. Hannah, I'll turn it off.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to be talking about maintaining a healthy gut. There are a lot of ways to do that. We're going to be talking about some dietary ways to help maintain it. And so let's get into it. Next slide. So we're going to be talking about probiotics, prebiotics, and both types of fiber, or two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. And let's see. And so we can get a lot of this from different foods. And I'm not going to be talking about a specific diet to go on. I'm just going to be talking about like ways you can incorporate this into your regular diet. And by increasing our bowel health. So basically the benefits of gut wellness can help in many things, including regular bowel movements, weight maintenance, pain management, alleviation of medication side effects, and much more. All right, next slide. The importance of gut health. We are what we eat, and what we eat and how our body processes it contributes greatly to our overall well-being. Research is showing that the gut microbiome can affect every organ in our body. Much of our serotonin is created in the gut, and so it even affects our emotions. An imbalance in our gut microbiome can weaken our immune system and cause painful inflammation. At-risk populations like us, and when I say at risk, I mean people more likely to need antibiotics or different types of medications, or have a hard time getting up, doing exercise, whatnot. We have to work extra hard to maintain our gut, our good bacterias. And when we lose our good bacterias, that can just lead from one health issue to the next. Our immune system can be affected. And so a healthy gut is our best tool, full of stool, to feeling good and energized. And a lot of the roads to good gut health can be tasty. All right, next slide, please.
So this is a word that's going to come up a few times in tonight's presentation, dysbiosis. And you might ask yourself, like, what could that be? If you look to the image on your right, you'll see the picture of like a normal gut, and you'll see the good bacteria in there that are helpful. And then you see when dysbiosis sets in, all the other bacteria that are in there that are more harmful and not helpful. And basically, dysbiosis means that there's an imbalance of microorganisms in your intestines. And after sustaining a spinal cord injury, the gut-brain axis shifts in both humans and rodent studies, causing dysbiosis to set in. Also, using antibiotics frequently will lead to gut dysbiosis. And unfortunately, for a lot of us with spinal cord injuries, UTIs are something that comes with the territory, which means those often require antibiotics to treat them, which means we're constantly giving ourselves this dysbiosis over and over without even realizing it. And when you're in the state of dysbiosis, it triggers stuff like bloating, gas. It increases neuropathic pain, so that burning sensation that people feel below their level of injury. It can help, or it causes increasing anxiety, nausea, depression, and just like an overall poor quality of life. And one thing I do want to point out, when you look at the images to the right, when you see the normal gut and the bacteria that's in there, it's a lot of the same bacteria you find in like yogurts and other fermented foods. But then you look on the right when your gut's in the state of dysbiosis and you read all the bacteria that are in there. And a lot of these same bacteria are the ones that we get in our bladders that cause UTIs, especially like the Klebsiella and the E. coli and the staph and the strep. And it's just like kind of mind blowing that it's all connected in a weird way like that.
All right, so first up, we're going to talk about probiotics and prebiotics. So like kind of the basic breakdown is the probiotics are the live microbes that could provide health benefits and help us digest our food and keep our guts healthy. Prebiotics are the food for the microbes. So they're just as important, even though they're not the living cells, but they are the food for the little microbes. Next slide. So probiotics are food or supplements that can live or that contain live microorganisms that help maintain or improve the good bacteria, microflora in the body. Every human body is home to trillions of microorganisms that live within us and help support our bodily functions and health. Not all of them are helpful, as you saw on the last slide, and they can be harmful. The beneficial ones, though, help control the harmful ones. And a healthy gut microbiome can boost overall immunity, help keep bowels regular, and reduce inflammation. Our gut microbiomes are affected by everyday things like stress and food choices, and probiotics are one way to restore it. So even like when we're doing things that are, like in the last slide, we talked about how we can sort of harm what's going on down there. Don't be afraid. It's not, if you lose it, it's gone. We can always keep restoring it and add more living cultures to our body. All right, next one. So here's a little list of probiotic foods and drinks. And I want to say, so most food containing live microorganisms are generally fermented. And when you're purchasing them, because you'll see some things on the list here, like apple cider vinegar, sauerkraut, pickles, olives, yogurt, and you're going to want to look at the label and make sure it says living cultures. There are some products, especially with pickles and olives, that are quick brined, and they don't necessarily have the living organisms. Same with sauerkraut. That's a big one because that's a really good go-to. When you're like, when I'm on antibiotics, I like to eat a lot of sauerkraut. It's one of my favorites, but you definitely need to make sure that they're coming from sources where they are still containing those in the end. And there are a few non-fermented things. Apples and green peas really surprised me, and you're gonna see these guys on a lot of lists. So then the apple a day keeps the doctor away. You'll understand at the end. And so this is just sort of a short list of what's available. There's a lot more. You can just do a quick internet search. I chose these ones because they're pretty common and easy to get. All right, next slide. So prebiotics can be described as non-digestible food product. Instead of digesting, they ferment and become food for the human microflora. Prebiotics are foods that are high in fiber, primarily insoluble fiber. They help the healthy bacteria grow in your gut, and in that way, they help the digestive system work better. Prebiotics also aid in our absorption of calcium. They improve metabolic health by changing the rate at which food causes spikes in blood sugar. They also help ferment foods faster as they go through the digestive tract. Because they're fermenting, then they help other foods ferment. That helps you not get constipated. Prebiotics may reduce appetite and cravings for sugary foods, and consumed along with probiotics may help reduce body fat. So we mentioned them at the beginning as food for the prebiotics, but they also do quite a bit. Their connection with the blood sugar really kind of goes through the whole body, and I mean they can really affect all of our systems, especially in tandem with the probiotics. All right, let's go to the next one. So here's a list of some good prebiotic foods. It is a lot of vegetables. So with all these lists, you'll notice a lot of them are plant-based, except for the yogurt and kefir. And you'll also see when we get to the insoluble, there's a huge connection between that and those. And oh yeah, so one more thing I wanted to mention is, like, because they're the food, I sort of think of a garden where the probiotics are the flowers and the prebiotics are sort of, the dirt and the nutrients in the dirt that help them grow. So they're just as important. You're not going to have flowers without good nutrition-rich dirt. Okay, next one. So what can endanger our microbiome? Everyday things. Stress can be a big one, and that ties into the gut-brain axis. And then our food choices. So one thing that kept popping up, a diet low in fiber and high in fats can degrade micropopulations. Sugar, diet with like lots of sugar can also affect it. Processed foods can be very harmful because they're often full of emulsifiers and detergent-like compounds. Emulsifiers are ingredients that might necessarily not be natural that help bind things that don't normally bind. And then the detergent-like compounds you'll find in there because of all the cleaning and sanitation that goes in to the machinery that is processing the foods. And so you kind of have to have that to keep the facility safe, but they can harm our gut flora. And then, of course, different illnesses and prolonged use of antibiotics and other bacteria destroying medications can affect us. And then, this is just sort of a reminder, when our microbiome balance is off, this is called dysbiosis. And dysbiosis can lead to bloating, abdominal cramping, diarrhea, constipation, and mucus in the stool. And as we all know, when we're experiencing any of those things, it's probably really affecting our day-to-day life. All right.
One of the things that I learned off this is like the effects of this, that it can that after a spinal cord injury or other traumatic event like that, that your body can go into this dysbiosis without anything else causing it. So you're kind of like into that just by having a spinal cord injury. And then if you throw on antibiotics on top of that, it's like pushing you deeper down this hole. And it's crazy how in the new studies that it's been found that directly links to neuropathic pain. And so it's just like this, your gut is something you forget about sometimes, and how like connected it is to the rest of your body.
Yeah, they're actually saying the microbiome, the state of your microbiome is one of the biggest indicators of your state of health. And same thing with your state of dysbiosis is the greatest indicator of like what you're lacking in health. Like it's a hot topic right now in the medical scenes. It's fun. All right, next one. So now we're going to talk about fibers, soluble and insoluble. So like a healthy diet should include both. They work in conjunction to promote digestion. Too much of only one type can have uncomfortable gastronomic effects, and we'll see why once we get more into it. So soluble fiber is called soluble because it dissolves and absorbs water, kind of forming a gel-like substance that helps to slow down food digestion. And it also helps to pull out toxins as it goes through. By slowing down the process, by slowing digestion, it slows down the process of food turning into glucose. That helps with appetite control and maintaining energy. The gel also protects the gastrointestinal muscles around the colon. Some soluble fibers also help maintain cholesterol by preventing dietary cholesterol from being broken down and digested. This in turn lowers the risk of heart disease and stroke. So soluble fiber, I don't know if you guys have ever taken Metamucil and left it in the cup a little too long, then you see how hard it gets. So that's sort of an example of what it does. And one thing with soluble fibers, it's very important to drink a lot of water when you're having a lot of soluble fiber, or else it does slow down digestion, which can be a good thing. And I highlighted some of the good aspects, but on that same realm, it can also easily turn into constipation if it's not balanced out well with extra water and insoluble fiber. All right, next slide. And here's a little list of foods. And so you'll kind of notice, as far as the most of the top part of the list, those things you can imagine they do grow with water. Like they're, chia seeds, if you've ever soaked those overnight, they get very big. And then but there are some vegetables. I didn't put apples on this list, but they are on this list. I just ran out of room and I left them out. But yeah, so there's a lot of things you can incorporate in your diet to get more soluble fibers. All right, insoluble fiber. This is fiber that does not dissolve in water, and it remains intact throughout the digestive process. And that should sound familiar, because when we talked about prebiotics, they don't digest and they go all the way through. So it's a prebiotic fiber. It provides bulk, and it helps push things along by moving undigested waste through the digestive system. Many foods have both fibers. The insoluble fiber comes from the indigestible parts, like fruit skins and seeds is a great example. It's sort of the roughage that we eat. It does help keep us regular, and when we can have regular, easy movements, when we reduce the risk of constipation, that also then is reducing the risk of hemorrhoids. And so insoluble fiber speeds up digestion, where soluble fiber slows it down. So that's why it's good to have them both in conjunction, which actually is the next slide. So I won't say too much on that till we switch. Oh, no, that's the next one. So this is a list of insoluble fiber foods. There is a little bit of crossover. And so this is our last big list. So I want to point out that a lot of things appeared on all the lists. And so it seems like sort of making sure that we're incorporating whole unprocessed foods into our diet is the best way to get these good fibers and these pre and probiotics. All the fibers do come from kind of plant-based origins. And once again, I'm not talking about a diet or turning vegan or anything, but being able to include this stuff is great. And apples are definitely the champions. They're not on this list either, but they are on the list. So especially like their skins are full of insoluble fiber. They've got the pre-probiotics, the soluble fiber. So yep. So that is that. Next slide, please. Here's the summary. Once again, it's important to include both types of fiber in a well-rounded diet. Yeah, so it's okay. Once again, sorry to be repetitive. It's present in most plant-based foods, especially when unprocessed. Both types of fiber aid in satiation and weight loss and promote a healthy gut microbiome. That's one thing my research kept touching on, was the satiation aspect, where you feel full for longer. So that's a great benefit of it. So you're not just like slamming a snack and then getting another unnecessary snack. And by not overeating, that also like gives our intestines time to process. So too much of one or the other can result in intestinal gas, abdominal bloating, abdominal cramping, diarrhea, and constipation. Some health conditions, though, like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, may be exasperated by too much fiber. So always check with your doctor or nutritionalist. Everything we're recommending and talking about is not across the board. This is just like for the most part. So you definitely, if you're going to be trying to make huge dietary changes, one, it will take your body time to adjust. And two, you might want to check with a doctor or a nutritionalist to make sure that whatever changes you're making are right for you and your particular biomes and bodies. All right, next slide, please. So we're going to talk about food choices versus supplements. And I sort of want to take, like, I wrote verses, but I kind of want to take the verses out because these are things that can really work together. And I'm not saying supplements are bad here, but so all of these biotics and fibers are available in supplement form. Some people may need to supplement their diet. Oh, hey, Michael. Some people may need to take supplements to balance out their gut microbiomes. But I want to warn you all to be cautious when choosing brands because many supplements aren't regulated and may not like have the healthy benefits that they promise. And so again, you'll want to talk to your doctor to see if supplementing is right for you. And also research some good brands because especially with probiotics, that's a huge one. There are a lot of things labeled with probiotics that really don't have living cultures. And so yeah, just when choosing supplements, do some research and talk to your diet. A varied diet that includes whole foods is the better way to establish, I want to sort of walk that back. It is a way to establish good gut health. I'm not going to say better. But the vitamins and minerals that are available in food are more potent because they're accompanied by many other beneficial nutrients, including hundreds of, sorry, I did not study carotenoids, flavonoids, minerals, antioxidants, and different things that aren't going to be available in the supplements. So they come like when we're getting this stuff out of our food choices, we're getting a broader spectrum of the beneficial aspects. All right, next one. A quick touch on smoking effects on gut health. So as we know, like cigarettes contain thousands of chemicals and many known carcinogens that affect our health in a lot of ways. Smoking pretty much gets to every part of the body, so it's not surprising that it also affects our gut health. So it does disrupt the bacteria, which impacts digestion and absorption. It reduces the microbiome, and that leads to dysbiosis, irritable bowel syndrome, and digestive issues. It can cause constipation, heartburn, and it hinders nutrition absorption. It can cause frequent abdominal pains, again, IBS and inflammation. And it does heighten the risk of ulcers, Crohn's, and stomach cancer. All right. So I included here a couple easy probiotic recipes. Sauerkraut and kefir are really good ways to kind of get it in quick. So I do want to mention, left one thing out of the sauerkraut recipe. So it can be as easy as just cutting up a head of cabbage, massaging it with salt, and then you always want to make sure it creates its own brine as you massage it with salt, and you'll want to make sure as you ferment it that it remains under the brine. And you can do that with putting a few big cabbage leaves to push it down, and then you'll cover the vessel you're using with something breathable. I think that part, oh, I did say do not seal, but what I left out was that should stay out at a room temperature environment, a clean room temperature environment. After 3 days, you can kind of start tasting it, and some people don't like such a sauerkraut, so you can really stop it whenever, and don't let it go too long unless you're just a wildcat. And then this kefir recipe, when it says the active kefir grains, you can actually buy, see down in this picture, these little bubbly looking things. You can buy kefir grains, and they're actually living. And so when we put them in the milk, they culture out throughout the milk pretty quickly. And it's fun, they multiply. So you can share them with your friends as they grow. Kind of like if anyone's made kombucha, you notice your SCOBY gets bigger and bigger, and you can split it up and share it too. And I didn't put it on here, but if you leave it a little bit longer than 24 to 48 hours, leave it for like 3 or 4 days, it kind of is more like yogurt. So it's very alive. So I really like that sour flavor, but sometimes, it is what is that called?
An
When you,
acquired taste.
yeah, it is an acquired taste. But these are two easy probiotic foods that are available in stores and also fun to make at home because you can have your little kitchen garden. All right, let's go to the next one. We just included a recipe here for a high fiber cookie. And what I want to point out here is like try to use whole wheat flour because whole wheats were on a couple of those lists. Oats, high in fiber. Then we get down, it includes the applesauce, our champion apples. And then we've got raisins and nuts, which are on a couple of the lists. I didn't add it because it's not super strong, but cocoa does have a lot of health benefits as far as being a prebiotic and one of the fibers. So you can make some nice, delicious cookies that are also going to help move things along. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I know, right? It goes quick when you're talking about something you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks everybody for participating tonight. We'd like to open it up to some questions or comments or personal experiences. Just be mindful that this is being recorded, so don't share anything that you don't want recorded. And after a little bit of this, I can turn off the recording. We can continue talking if there's things that you're not comfortable bringing up that's recorded. But feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions or share.
Well, and I'll kind of start with something I just went through recently, where I was having iron deficiency. And so I, with just a friend recommended some iron supplements. And so I went kind of, buck wild with the iron supplements. And I was also having some separate GI issues that ended up being extremely exasperated by the iron supplements. And then I was told by two different doctors to never take them again. So that's just for my body. I'm not talking trash on iron supplements, but that's just an example of why we want to talk to our doctors about our choices when we're trying to heal ourselves at home. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? Add tips, stories, whatever?
Yeah,
Ooh,
sorry I made it so late. I got preoccupied with the guys building my entertainment center in my living room. But I can definitely attest to the whole smoking thing because I smoke. I don't smoke a whole lot. I didn't realize my video wasn't on. But I do end up with like a lot of gut pain. And a lot of IBS issues and stuff. I'm working on quitting smoking. And so right now I rely on my kombucha. I actually just started being able to brew it again.
nice.
And I noticed a huge difference with how I feel, just even in general, uh, after a while of drinking that. And it's super cheap. It's not an expensive thing to get into. Did you have anything on here about doing kombucha or how
It's
effective that can
on
be?
the list of probiotic foods, but I didn't include a recipe. Do you want to give us a quick rundown?
So it's really simple. So a SCOBY you can get on Amazon for like $10, and a SCOBY will do a gallon. Uh, each batch takes about a week to 10 days, depending on you like things more sour. So like you can probably go it for a 10-day batch. I will drink a 16-ounce bottle every day, and that will last about a week. So you boil your a pot of water, and you throw in 6 bags of tea. Could be pretty much any tea of your choice. Um, and then a whole cup of sugar with it, and then wait till that comes down to about room temperature. You don't want it being too hot because you don't want to kill your SCOBY. And then you pour that into your jar, and you toss your SCOBY with the SCOBY solution that it comes in with that, because that'll kickstart the whole thing. And then so when you start a new batch, you actually want to save 1 cup of the old solution that you made to kickstart the next batch. And I usually end up, I think, with like 6 or 8 bottles of 16-ounce bottles of kombucha after each batch. And it's so much better tasting than the stuff that they have in the stores. Like, to me, that stuff tastes like nail polish remover, or at least how nail polish remover smells.
Do you have to put the bottles in the fridge after you pour them off?
So that's the thing. So during fermentation, it gives off CO2. So you don't want to cap it or anything while it's brewing. And then once it's brewed, you want to get it refrigerated, because it'll keep going if it's left at room temperature. And actually, after you take it out of the SCOBY out and bottle it up, if you want it carbonated, you put it into sealed bottles and you burp it every day, but it'll carbonate itself. And then you can toss it in your fridge and you'll have a carbonated kombucha. It's really good, especially if you put like fruit in it and let it go for like a week. It's awesome. Mango's the best. Holy crap, it's so good.
Wes, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, I'm like pretty sensitive to caffeine. And do you have
Same.
to use
So no, I
oil?
use black green tea, or just regular caffeinated tea. So no, it definitely doesn't have to be, because I'm the same way. Like, if I get anxiety pretty easily, so like I have to watch my like I don't drink sodas at all, or very rarely anyways. But even when I do, like it's always got to be decaffeinated stuff. So I stick with like my Sprite or Sierra Mist and whatnot.
You know, I'm pretty sensitive to caffeine too, and I haven't noticed side effects. Like when my housemate was making it with green tea, which is pretty caffeinated. So I'm kind of wondering if it loses caffeine in the fermenting process. I'm gonna have to research that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought green tea didn't have caffeine in it.
No, green tea and black tea are both caffeinated.
Okay, well, the ones that I got, it says decaf on it.
Oh,
so.
nice. All right, well, when you start having little SCOBY babies, I'm gonna have to get one and start brewing over here too.
Oh, I actually got one right now, ready to go. If
Nice.
I can throw it in the fridge and save it for you.
Perfect. I'll trade you for that backpack strap I've been promising.
Deal.
Well, thank you, Michael. That's excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and then one thing I want to mention to touch on quitting smoking. I didn't include it in here, but there are some different gut issues that will crop up after tobacco cessation. And so I can send you some resources, or just be a point
Yeah,
person.
that would be great.
But so it can be, because it affects your gut when you're smoking, and your gut will be a little wonky when you quit for different reasons. So yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's still good to quit, but yeah, just be
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mark, do you guys have a question?
This is Cindy, Mark's wife. This is all stuff we've been, of course, dealing with, and I thought you shared some great information. We recently had a physician, Mark, going through sepsis, was on antibiotics for like 9 months and wound up with C. diff. So it's been something we've, tried to get him past for a long while with all the things you're talking about. And soluble fiber has been one of the keys for us. But we recently had a physician mention the FODMAP to us, FODMAP, which I had never heard of before, but it's a list of foods that can trigger diarrhea. It's meant for people with inflammatory bowel disease, but it sort of affects all of us dealing with these issues too. And there are certain foods that will trigger issues. Like, for us, we're experimenting with less sugar. And, there's certain fruits. We were feeding Mark mango juice every morning because he loved it, but that was high on the FODMAP list of something that can trigger. So he's been cut off of that now.
Yeah, it's bad.
But anyway, it might be worth for some people just looking at FODMAP, FODMAP, and it's you kind of eliminate these things and see maybe what's triggering the that's helpful.
That's an excellent point. And then, so what did you have to do to get a personalized FODMAP?
We just, you can just go online. I mean, they're just right there. It's just, you have to kind of work through it. It's basically you're eliminating things and then kind of adding them back in to see what might be a trigger for you.
You may talk to your own doctor about what would be appropriate for you.
Yeah.
That might be a good start.
But the FODMAP information online was pretty good. And I mean, the sugar and mango, I mean, as soon as we stopped that, we saw an improvement in things.
You know, I thought mango kombucha sounded wonderful.
I know, huh?
Evidently, it's not
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, that's the thing with kombucha is that, you know, there's not a whole lot of sugar in it because the stuff that's in there is eating it and, you know, using it as the fuel to ferment it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, once it's done, there's barely any sugar.
We,
How did you spell that? Is it FODMAP, all one thing?
yeah, it's really easy to find FODMAP. So.
All right, I'm putting that in the chat because I see Smash asked. Oopsies. If I can figure out how to put it in the chat.
One thing I want to bring up is there's a bunch. So this whole topic about dysbiosis and your overall health is like really hot right now. And one of the things that they're doing some studies on is for people that are in dysbiosis of doing a fecal transplant and seeing the results down the way. And so unfortunately, none of the studies are finished yet to really share on, but it is a pretty hot topic and something they're doing a lot of trials on right now.
Yeah, it's getting to be really, because they realize they're going to be able to diagnose people's future issues from their biome because it's so unique. It's like your fingerprint. And one of the things, I work with a really smart gastroenterologist here locally. One of the things this theory, they've never known what the appendix was for. And they're starting to think that it actually is like a little receptacle of bacteria to re-implant your colon if you've been through antibiotics or something. They think it actually refuels the biome, which is kind of cool because they've never known why we had an appendix.
Wow.
Oh, that is so cool. And then that also reminds me, there's also they thought that we're born sterile, but I think wasn't it that we get a lot of bacteria from our mother's womb and tract, and that's what's stored in the appendix, right?
It could be. I mean, they've never, this is like a new theory, but it kind of makes sense. Why would you have this little sac that does nothing but grow bacteria if it wasn't for some benefit? They've just never understood why. And I mean, Western medicine is slow to kind of understand. It is all one thing. Our gut. I mean, that whole thing of trusting your gut instincts. There's intelligence in the gut, and they're just starting to really kind of explore that idea.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting, I think, a lot because we have a little bit more control over what happens to the gut than different organs that you might, which we have control through our gut. But if someone said, "Oh, well, it's just a problem with this," we might say, "Well, I don't know how to help that. Like, except maybe I have to take medicine." But knowing that we can kind of restore a lot of our body through our gut puts the power in our hands.
I saw Victor shared in the chat that beans are best for iron, Hannah.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, Victor. We eat a lot of beans in this house, so that's good.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
And we can also stop recording if anyone wants to bring up anything they feel is a little too personal.
Well,
So this is being recorded. Is this going to be posted or anything? Because I missed pretty much the whole thing.
It'll go onto our YouTube and then onto our website to be available.
Oh, I don't think I've seen the YouTube. Okay.
So yeah, your kombucha recipe is famous now.
Right?
Awesome.
Oh,
well, I guess what I would I'd share some of my personal experience with kind of moving away from highly processed carbs. Like one of my favorites is like cold cereal, or gosh, but like that's I just like the way I can manage my bowel and the way I feel when I'm not like eating a bunch of that stuff. And for the most part, yeah, that stuff just jams me up really bad. It's just like terrible. And when you were talking about Hannah talking about the emulsifiers and all the stuff that's in there that I can't even sound it out. Um, that's what it's like. My guts too, just a big old garble of gunk. So I know you talked a lot about like the positive things and then also just thinking about just the crap and the sugar that just creates like cement. So yeah, I think that's been really helpful to me, being trying to intentional about getting rid of those highly processed carbs and sugars and stuff.
Well, thanks. That's great. Let's see.
Victor,
Yeah, I was gonna share a little bit about mine. I've changed my diet with I took out red meat and dairy, so anything to do with milk and stuff like that. It's helped me tremendously, not just in the gut and the other areas too. Mm. And yeah, just processed food too. Just eating more homemade food. More vegetables and stuff.
nice.
I've noticed too, because I'm in a house where we do a lot of whole food cooking and we do a lot of food prep together. And it's actually like really affordable, because some people say, oh, eating healthy is too expensive. But yeah, we've noticed like we do it because we're all a bunch of cheapskates here, and we'll do a week's worth of beans, a week's worth of grains, a week's worth of protein, and just kind of eat off it together. So I do find eating whole to sometimes be cheaper, a little bit more time consuming than just buying ready to eat, processed foods, but it can be fun time.
Yeah, that seems to be my biggest issue with eating healthy and cooking whole foods is finding the time to do it. Uh, like I try to really watch, how much fast food and stuff I eat because there's so much sugar and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, it's really finding the time to be able to do it, and so I end up doing a lot of food prep on the weekends, and I'll eat like the same thing for several days at a time, and before I move on to the next thing. And then I didn't know I actually went through several years of being lactose intolerant without even knowing it. I was having all kinds of stomach pains and fluctuations in my bowel movement consistencies and stuff before I did like an elimination diet and slowly put things back in. And sure, like I had suspected that it was dairy. And then sure enough, once I had done it, like, holy crap, it was like night and day. I felt really bad because I had a nephew that was staying with me for a while, and he was always wanting me to play games with him and stuff, and I just never felt good. And it was mostly because of the dairy that I was consuming. And it's really sad because I really like cheese and milk. Oh man, yeah.
Whatever, you big pizza eater, you still eat cheese.
What's that?
I've seen you eat pizza.
Yeah, and now actually that's actually getting so bad that I'm eating like 15 of those lactates just to eat cheese, just to eat pizza. I did it today.
I'll share my plate of romaine with you next time.
All right.
Vic or Tamara, you have a question? Or a comment?
Just a comment. I eat a plant-based diet, have for many years, and I thought that would like remedy my problem if I just eliminate anything other than plants, because that's our source of fiber. But I still think it's true that all of us have our own balance to find. And so far, I've been able to work pretty good with that. And probably about 90% of my food is single ingredient, made at home food. And I do think it's cheaper, but for me. But aside from that, I was trying to just build a healthy gut microbiome. And too much of anything will throw me off. So I still think, for me, I found that eating plants works best for me for lots of reasons. but it still gets down to every gut is different and you got to find your own way. And there's no right or wrongs. You just got to sort it out.
Hmm.
I think that's a great point you bring up. Thanks for sharing.
I do have to say I did well, my parents are vegan, but I started eating meat in my early 20s. But the year that I did a cleanse and realized that cheese and gluten don't really work for me. I didn't exactly do an elimination diet, but close enough. And so I cut those out. Not all dairy, but just melty cheeses. But I continued the cleanse and I did a vegan unprocessed diet for an entire summer. And I've never felt better or more energized, but it was so time consuming. But I absolutely loved it. I don't know, for me personally, I think I'd have a hard time sustaining that through the cold times.
I have to say, I would not be as successful being a plant-based eater if I didn't have my wife cooking for me because I can't reach the top of the stove. So, you know, I mean, that's just real, right? It would be really, I could eat a raw diet, but then that would upset me eventually. Too much raw food is hard. So I'm really fortunate, and it's just not possible for everyone to prepare whole food meals all the time. And that's a reality too. You got to work with what you got.
Yeah.
Victor, I saw your hand go up, but then you took it down. Do you have something to say?
Yeah, it was another quick thing, like what I do, like whenever I want to like reset, and you know, if my stomach's bad or even sick, a good thing is always I like to fast. I don't know
Ooh,
if that you know, helps a lot. Just even when you're sick, you know, because your body, if it's not digesting food, it's, you know, it's recovering itself, you know. So I know just maybe minor fasting, maybe with fruit and like liquids and stuff. If you can't, you know, go that long without eating, I know that's really good. And if you can, then just water and liquids is the best. And actually, after, you know, it's actually kind of spiritual. After, if you last like over 30 days of fasting, it's yeah, it's something to get into.
yeah, I used to do some fasting in my early 20s, and I remember it just being an amazing experience. And like now, I don't quite have the willpower to make it through a very long fast, but I do notice when I've been constipated long enough that I literally just have no appetite. It's amazing what a day of not eating will do. And that's not even like a necessarily intentional meditative fast, but I've noticed that. But yeah, fasting is excellent, and intermittent fasting has a lot of good results for people as well.
I have a question that probably none of us can answer, but just to the fasting, like, so if your gut is in dysbiosis and it's got all the bad bacteria and then you fast, does all that, I mean, it doesn't kill that bad bacteria off, so you're not necessarily, or does it? Or are you starving it out? So I don't know, like, I'm wondering if that has any effects on changing it.
I can't answer that one.
Yeah, oh, do you have something, Cindy?
I think because intermittent fasting is becoming such a thing, as they realize, they think it helps us clear toxins. So maybe it does. I mean, you
Nice.
don't want to think necessarily of the bacteria in your gut as being bad because it's unique to you, right? It's the balance between our bacteria and fungus and other things. It's keeping that balance, right? So
Yeah.
intermittent fasting is becoming a much more popular thing because they think it does help us clear toxins. And even if you have a lot of mucus and stuff in your bowel, it can kind of help clear that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's Benny.
Oh, hey, kitty.
You there, Benny?
Well, I'm going to stop the recording, but we are welcome to stay chatting. Thank you all.